Hey everybody, today it's about biking and how you can set up your GoPro optimally to achieve the best possible shots. In most cases you will make POV shots when biking. I myself usually use a chest mount, but you can also use a helmet mount or a handlebar mount of course. For the settings on your GoPro doesn't change much. If you want to set up your GoPro optimally for these recordings, you must first decide on the right resolution. You should make this decision together with the frame rate, because the options for the frame rate depend on the resolution. In general, the higher the resolution, the less frames per second you have available. For an optimal image quality, you should of course choose the highest possible resolution. With the GoPro Hero 6 you can record 4K at 60 frames per second. That sounds basically perfect, because you have the highest possible resolution and with 60 FPS also a frame rate that allows to capture realistic movements and to create slow motion in post. However, this setting has several disadvantages. 4K 60 does not support image stabilization, so you should stabilize your shots in other ways. A gimbal that is suitable for a chest mount would be ideal. I'll put a respective link in the video description if you're interested. Another disadvantage is that 4K 60 is captured in the HEVC codec. This is basically not a bad thing. However, this codec requires a fast CPU and up-to-date software, so you should check in advance whether your PC can handle it. In addition, 4K 60 does not support the field of view superview. For these reasons I wouldn't normally opt for 4K 60 but for 4K and 30 frames per second or for 2.7K and 60 FPS. Both settings support image stabilization and use the H.264 codec, which is easier for your PC to handle. Now you have to decide whether a higher frame rate is more important or a higher resolution. 4K 30 offers you a great image quality but no possibility to slow down exciting moments in post. A higher frame rate of 60 frames per second also has the advantage that your videos look smoother and more realistic. But due to our viewing habits, a high frame rate leads to a less cinematic look. To decide which resolution and frame rate you should use, you should think of an answer to the following question. Is the possibility to create a slow motion of your POV videos in post important to you? On which screens do you watch your videos? Do they have a 4K resolution? A 4K recording is of course in any case more future-proof. And what do you like better, the look of the 30 frames per second or the more fluid and realistic but less cinematic 60 FPS? As you can see, it's hard to make a clear decision here. Personally, I prefer the 60 frames per second and therefore shoot in 2.7K. Please keep in mind that in low light conditions, a low frame rate is always an advantage. Now let's take a look at the second important decision, the field of view. For POV shots you should choose a maximum large field of view to create an immersive look. There is often the problem that due to the typical aspect ratio of 16:9, important sections of the image sensor are lost, parts of the horizon are lost or you can't see your handlebar. To avoid this, GoPro recommends a resolution with an aspect ratio of 4:3 for POV shots, for example 4K 4:3 or 2.7K 4:3. Apart from the fact that there are further limitations for the frame rate, black bars appear on the left and right of these shots, so you have to either stretch or crop your shots later on. GoPro solves this problem as good as possible with the field of view superview. The camera takes an image in 4:3 and the two outer areas on the left and right are stretched in order to create an aspect ratio of 16:9. The advantage is that your vertical viewing angle increases, so you see more from the ground and from the sky, but there are distortions at the sides while the center of the image remains untouched. Personally, I think this is an optimal solution for POV shots when biking, so I recommend superview as field of view. If the distortion on the sides bother you, choose white. Now let's have a look at the ProTune settings. On the topic ProTune, I already made a very detailed video which I would like to recommend to you for further explanations. I set shutter to auto because it does not make sense to set the shutter speed manually for this purpose. I set exposure value compensation to -0.5 so you avoid overexposing bright areas in the image. I set ISO minimum to 100, ISO maximum to 400. The auto white balance in the GoPro works relatively well overall. However, if you take long shots, for example a ride of several minutes, you have the problem that the GoPro could change the white balance during the ride, which is difficult to correct in post. To prevent this, you should choose white balance native for these shots, but you will have to correct the color in post. I set the sharpness to medium to prevent artificial sharpening by the camera. Low would also be a good option, but here a slight sharpening in post might be necessary. As always I use flat under color, which gives me more possibilities for editing. I set audio to off. We have now discussed the most important settings for bike recordings. Let's recap. 2.7K and 60 FPS as standard resolution and frame rate. 4K 30 if a higher resolution is more important to you than a higher frame rate. Field of view superview. Shutter auto, exposure value compensation -0.5, ISO minimum 100 and ISO maximum 400. White balance auto or native for longer recordings, sharpness medium, color flat and audio off. I hope the tutorial was helpful for you. You support my channel with a like and see you next time.